Hi everyone, and welcome back to the next part here where we're going to be working on the chest. Now, females are a lot harder to do than males when it comes to the chest. For the male chest, you kind of just, bulk out the polygons and do like some simple extrusions, and you can get a pretty decent looking chest just by doing some simple modifications to this area. However, a lot of people have struggle a lot, especially when it comes to doing like realistic breasts and stuff like that. Tends to be quite an issue for a lot of people to model. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tweak around a little bit here to create some nice curves first. So I'm just tweaking around here, and I'm going to create a nice shape. So that, because what we're going to do is we're going to create pretty much a flow that's going to flow from the down part of this arm here, and we're going to flow across the chest here. Even from way back here, we're going to create probably some cuts and create the breast shape here. So let's start off with what we're going to do is we're going to collapse the middle vertex. So we're actually going to make this a point. And to do that, you just basically grab these two vertexes here and you just collapse them. So what you do is you go down to your edit geometry menu and you go to collapse and you hit collapse. What that'll do is it pretty much welds them. It's the same as welding except we're just collapsing them. So right now we have some collapsed vertexes. So you'll notice even as we're playing around here that we can probably smooth this out a bit more, and I'm just kind of smoothing things out. I'm going to pop this a little bit forward and just these a little bit forward as well. And we know we're stuck at little points here with the collapsed vertex, right? We can't have something that looks like this sticking around. We need to do some modifications to it. Just do a quick render there to see what it looks like. And we're looking good at the low poly. So now we have basically two triangles that are pointing down here. We need to try and create a curve of our own. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up cutting our own vertexes. You can see I'm just doing some slight modifications here, making this like a nice clean line. I'm going to move this up so it's like this. And then I'm actually going to cut a couple of lines into our model. Now these lines will eventually be made to flow, so we don't need to panic too much. But I'm going to cut from this vertex here down to this vertex, right? So we have this line, and then I'm going to cut from this triangle. We're going to create a triangle up here as well. So after we do that, we're going to work on these breasts, and we're going to cut some more lines through it. So we have these two triangles here, and I'm going to actually make this one go into this vertex here. And this one will actually go upwards and meet up with a loop here. So I'm going to go in. If you didn't click right, I misclicked a little slightly. I just go in and I'll collapse these two vertexes by clicking on them and going collapse, and it merges them. And so what I should get, is you get a loop that goes underneath here, from here, and kind of just goes around our model, right? So you can see, I'll do some slight adjustments here, that it loops underneath the breast here, right? So what we're going to do afterwards is we're also going to create a new cut, and this cut will work a lot better in the flow. We see a flow coming out here now, so we're actually going to make this flow the outer edge there. What we're going to do with these vertexes here is we're going to adjust them slightly so that these will pop out to be the breasts. We're going to extrude these, and this will be the underneath and between the breasts right here. So I'm going to just lower this one. So let's say about here-ish. And yeah, so this will pop out like that. And then I'm going to increase this curve and put this more up because we're going to make some bigger breasts at least. And then we can always scale them and adjust them as we see fit afterwards. So I'm just adjusting like that. There you go. So we have a loop that's going to work decently well. And we can, don't forget, you can always adjust these. We can go in our front view. And what we're going to do eventually is we're just going to, well, what we should do now actually is while you're working in this view, just pop these vertexes in a bit to create this nice flow here on the side. And then you can bring this and work around it as we get lower on our model. What this will do is we're just creating a nice little curve here. You can see it matches the curve we have down here. And we should literally just start grabbing these vertexes here and pushing them in just a little bit. It'll create a nice flow, especially when it comes down to the mesh smooth. Or if someone's just looking directly at your low poly, This will make a nice look to it. And you can see we're getting a nice nice shape to it already here. We'll do some work on the pelvis later to adjust that as well. But so far it's looking pretty good. So I always go around my model. You can see like what I do is I go around my model a lot and do small adjustments. Even as I'm going, I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like I used some tweaks. So just go around your model and see if you need any tweaks while we're doing this. But while we're working on the breast, all I did was we made some cuts going down the armpit here. So the underneath of the breast has this line here. So we got to make sure to have this line that will then go down the middle of the arm, or at least as close to the middle of the arm as possible. And then we made another cut that goes from the side of the arm and comes through like this. It flows across here, and it also flows across here. So we have this nice space here because we're going to extrude this in a second to make the breast here. And what we're going to do is we're going to extrude these just once. So we're going to grab these polygons here. And we're actually going to, you know what, instead of actually extruding these polygons, a much better practice would actually be to cut across these polygons. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up, let's say, adjusting these vertexes here. I'll push this up here a little bit like that. Push this slightly towards the center. You know, breasts don't point straight forward. They're kind of like curved like this. And I'm going to actually cut into these. So I'm going to go a polygon cut. I'll make this a little bit clearer. And I'm just going to cut around my model here. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to cut the circle shape out. So instead of doing an extrusion that might result in some weird shapes, I'm actually going to cut this shape out just like that. And then I'm going to work in my side view and pull this forward and see what we can get out of this. So I'm going to pull this. You know, you can expand it as much as you want. And then I'm going to go to my left view here. And you can see it's all pretty spot on there. You know, I can see my breast is actually lower on my model. I could have actually built it a little bit lower. But I'm okay with the positioning, and now I'll just adjust the vertexes. In fact, if you run into something like mine where you want to lower, you know, lower the actual breasts here, we can grab this entire section here, lower it slightly, and then adjust these vertexes to make it fit correctly. You know, sometimes you run into errors like this, and it can be a bit annoying. But overall, it's just a matter of slight adjustments and playing around with the edge flow to make sure everything's looking going in the right location. And you can see we're at a much better state than we once were. And I can start playing around with these vertexes and adjusting as I see fit here. Front. I'm just checking out what it looks like on the front. It looks okay here. And I go to my perspective, and I see like we're getting a small breast bump coming up. So obviously, you see like that's coming up actually not so bad. So this still take a lot of tweaking and work. So you just keep going back, and so far you can just do slight adjustments. Remember, the model will appear smoother the further apart polygons are. So you can always turn on and off mesh smooth here to see what your model will look like. Adjust it. It should form, I would say, not a perfect circle. There's obviously a droop that should happen. So you should go to your left view, play around a bit until you get the kind of look you're going for. For me, my breast is a little bit higher than the actual reference model, so I'm just doing some slight adjustments here. And I'm rotating around my model. And remember to keep these pushed in the middle. Breasts are separate. They're two objects, not just one. So you can see that with Mesh Smooth on, we have separated it, and it actually looks pretty decent already just by doing that. And of course, you can go in from the top view, make your adjustments here. Like this. Slight adjustments like that. And all we had to do was collapse, do a few cuts and some short adjustments. And we got some fairly nice looking chests here. And trust me when I say a lot of people have a lot of issues modeling this kind of stuff. So just take your time with it. And you're going to see some great results. And that's really going to give you some leverage, especially when it comes to applying for jobs. Because not a lot of people can actually model females really well. Don't forget to weld vertices that are off. Don't forget to adjust the vertices on the side of the armpit to make it look really good. Make sure that flow is consistent kind of everywhere here. And yeah, you'll get a nice looking chest. Now we're going to keep working on this a little bit more. So we built kind of the base part here. So we have a little bulge on the side. It looks nice. We don't want to exaggerate it too much. Maybe we don't want it to sag as much either. So you can just start playing with the vertexes. You know, like I said, it's all about playing with these vertexes and making sure you get that final look that you like. You know, from an angle, side view. My side view looks pretty good, I think. Yeah, it's not too bad, but maybe I want to add more detail, so I go to my left, and I'm just going to make them slightly bigger by bulking out here. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about the front of my breast because we're actually going to probably expand it a bit, and we're going to do a couple cuts and see what we can do to add in some detail. So I'm going to actually add another, let's say, another cut going up the arm here. So I'll show you where I'm going to put the cut. So I'll go back to low poly mode, maybe another cut to here. And it's all about experimentation. So I did that, and I get this little curve here. And if I take it back, you know, gives it that nice, well, a little bit more form. And so because I'm going to add this cut here, I'm probably going to add another cut looping around the top part of the model here. About here. And connect this here. So this is for you to experiment with as well. This is me experimenting and playing around with it, trying to get that nice shape, and trying to adjust the shape. You can see I got a little pinching here going on. So I just investigate, see what's causing the pinching. I can adjust it, fix it. I can go to Mesh Smooth and check out what's going on. And, you know, mostly it's just, oops, I'll work on one side of my model at once. Mostly it's just because the vertexes are really, really close. That my model thinks that it should be the way it is, but you know, just a couple, undo that collapsing there. There you go. So I just moved them a little bit, spaced them apart a little bit, so the smoothing went a little bit better. You know, I'm going to move the lower part of the breast down slightly, expand this out a little bit. And then I go to my top view. Always play around your different viewports because you can see from the top view I might not be too ecstatically happy about this. I just need to go around, start changing it, modifying it. You can see my vertexes here might need some small adjustment. You know, the flow up here could use a little bit of work, so I just tweak this. And then I see what it looks like with Mesh Smooth on. And so my top view is a lot better right now. And then if I go to my side view, that's pretty good. It might need a little bit of tweaking down here with these vertexes where the breasts go inwards. So I just find that and I start modifying it. You know, maybe push it up a bit. And if you want to, you can always expand and push them outwards. You can always add new polygon lines as well. So for instance, down the middle of the breast, if we need to cut more upwards here, up to where the chest bone is, we can go to our front view. You know, maybe we want to cut up to this point here so that we can push it inward slightly. So what I'm going to do is I can go to polygons. I can go to cut mode. And we can just try and maybe make sure this loops maybe slightly better. So I will push this here. And bring that maybe this point there. And it's all about experimentation. So I see I put that line in there. I'm actually not really that content with it. I'm more content with a shape like this that will weld because I'm just going to put clothing on top of it. I push P to go in my perspective mode. I do a render from a distance. I see that it looks pretty good. If your character is especially going to wear a shirt, chances are you don't need to model the breasts apart. You can actually model them together, extrude across to form like one chest rack. But if your character is a lot closer, for your first time body modeling, just try and make sure that the shape, you know, looks okay from the side view. And remember that a breast isn't like perfectly circular around here. it's actually flattening out here, and then it goes into the circle shape. So if I go to my left view, you can see you got this, and then it pops out forward like that. You know, don't be afraid to look up reference images as well, of course, and just check that out and make sure that they look okay. And I'm just going to play around with these vertexes a bit, lower these. That. And if you find that everything's too spaced out, like too far away, you can see my breast here might be like a little too distant and it's looking a little smushed on some sides because I don't have enough polygons to play with. Don't be afraid to make another Swift loop in here. Throw in another Swift loop. And if you can't make a Swift loop, just cut in. For instance, I cut in its detail first. So I'm going to probably need to make my own cuts across here. Like that. And you get more of a pointed shape. That obviously requires more editing. So I'm going to take my time and go through that. But like I said, take your time. Make sure that the mesh smooth kind of forms a circular shape. The easiest way to do that is to get the cuts at the beginning, and then we start cutting into our mesh a little bit more every single time. If you want to keep it really simple, just do some simple cuts. Don't go too crazy. If you find that something's not working, just collapse or weld it together. You can go to collapse here, and you can always like reset and restart. And you can see like I like this shape a little bit better than what it once was. And I can go to my model and do it again and again and again wherever I see fit. If I go here and weld here or collapse here even, and then go to mesh smooth. The shape looks pretty good. I actually really like this shape so far. And obviously down the middle, it's going to be welded eventually. So you don't need to worry so much about it looking smooth together. In fact, if you are worrying and you're panicking, what I would suggest to do, and this might work or may not, we're about to find out in a second, is use something called symmetry mode. If I go to my modifier list and I add symmetry, let's hope it works. And then I change the mirror axis here. So, for instance, you see where my axis point is now, okay? So let's take a step back for a second. I grab my model. I deleted my mirrored side. I'm going to go to my top view. My axis of my current model is like somewhere here. We want it to lay it flat against itself. So I'm going to go to my third menu here, not geometry, not modify, not high. I'm in the hierarchy menu. And I go to affect pivot only. This means that it will affect the pivot point of the object only. It will not affect anything else in our scene. And I move the pivot to pretty much where I want to mirror my model, which will be around this point right there. That means it's going to create a mirror along that point once I put symmetry on, and then it will duplicate my model automatically on the other side and work with it automatically. So if I go to symmetry mode now, what I should get if I go to Y or Z mode right there, I should get this model merging right down the middle. However, the threshold, it looks like I still need a bit of work adjusting the pivot point. The reason why sometimes I do not like symmetry mode is you have to make sure the pivot is rotated correctly and everything like that. And you see what it's doing to our model. It's a bit weird here. So what I can do is reset transform, reset scale, and then move it to the correct position. Like so. Make sure it's right down the middle. The arrow's pointing pretty much right down the middle, like that. And now I'm going to go to tools. I'll add the symmetry modifier, see if it works. Yeah, see, we're getting this weird error here. This is why I like mirror mode, guys. Tools. Mirror. Reference. A lot easier, right? But you can see our low poly is looking really good. We got the breasts in there now. They're low poly, but in the mesh smooth they look good. And don't forget that you can always modify the shape. We still get the flowing polygons and some triangles in there. Obviously, if you can eliminate more triangles, the better. But these are shapes that we can edit ourselves as well. You can rotate and scale to make sure everything looks good the way you like it. 3D modeling is like art. It takes time. You got to learn and develop as you go with these skills. Play around with the vertexes. Make sure they're in the location that you like. Make sure everything flows correctly. If you don't know anatomy that well, definitely try and practice and see what you can figure out by looking up reference images and just trying it out. And make sure to add Turbo Smooth or Mesh Smooth, whichever one you prefer. And you can see some good results here, especially with Turbo Smooth. We get a decent result on the sides. The breasts look good here, although be it they have a little point. That's because there is no, I didn't add enough iterations to this one, and also the polygon count was really low. The more iterations you add, the smoother it looks. And you can see we actually have a really, really good shape, and our character is really starting to develop here pretty well. I'd say overall. I'd say we do have this rat's nest here, which we do have to fix. The easiest way to fix a rat's nest in this kind of model here is to simply go over it and try and reduce the amount of triangles as possible. Now, right now, when it comes to actually 3D modeling breasts, it is hard to reduce triangles because everything pretty much does come to a point. But the easiest way to do that is just to keep extruding and then making more shapes out of it. But it becomes more I wouldn't say tedious. What it does is you're adding more detail, but that means you're going to have to tweak a bit more every single time too. So make sure that if you are going to add more detail and you are adding more vertexes, that you smooth it out, make sure it looks good, adjust it correctly. So I'm going here and I'm adding going smooth in group 1. I added more detail now. But if I add Turbo Smooth, you can see that there's a little bit more fuzziness around here, and that's because it needs a lot of adjustments as I go forward. So if you're going to take your time, and you should take your time, you should take a lot longer than I am doing this. You should take maybe a couple hours and really work at this. You can do a pretty good job of it. Don't forget to turn on this little vial here, and you can do your adjustments with that. Yeah, and you can see that's not too bad. There is a little push-in on the side of the breast here that I might actually change. And if I click here, I think I'm seeing where the pushing problem is. So I'm just going to adjust that slightly. There you go. Looks much, much better. See, like the one little small tweak like that, you see something that needs a little tweak, just tweak it and adjust it. And now we have actually a really nice looking character here. And I might lift this part of the breast up, or push this out a bit more. But I'd say this is fairly accurate and really nice from all the different angles we can render from, especially considering the low polygon count we're using. And, we're at 9,000 on Turbo Smooth, but with Turbo Smooth off, the model still looks good. Some small smoothing groups, it's still pretty rigid around the area. But with Turbo Smooth on and 9,000 polygons for this entire model, that's really, really, really good. Remember, like the average model is like almost 50,000 polygons now with clothing. So we got a ton to work with, even at fully Turbo Smooth. We got a really nice smooth model here that looks really good. So you should have this week this full body done: breast, hands, arms, legs, feet, torso, stomach, modified, edited, and looking great. Like I said, there is no assignment this week when it comes to this stuff. And I'll give you I was going to start with the head and hair earlier, like early next week. But what I do, like Monday, but I want to actually get you started a little bit earlier on that. But for Friday, I just need this done. And on Saturday, I'll provide you the video for the head and the hair and the eyes. And then that way you get a bit of time, finish the body, finish everything, make sure it looks really, really, really good. And then I want you guys to start working on the head. And then you can just do that. There is no assignment. Just do this work, follow these tutorials, and try your best to get a female body done or equivalent if you're working on something else. And try and get the entire body done. Because the head in most video games is a detached model. So we're going to model that in a completely different way. And hopefully if you get this result, in your basic modeling, then that means you'll be ready for the head. So start with one step and don't get too advanced. Just make sure that this looks really good in the render with Turbo Smooth and Mesh Smooth on, and you'll be fine. If you are really confident in your model being done, what I would do is try and duplicate this model. So you see I have this model here. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to create a copy of this. So that's going to be a separate copy of my model. I'm going to take these two parts. I'm going to convert to Edit Mesh, and I'm going to attach them together. And then I'm going to weld them down the middle. So I'm going to go to the top view. Sorry, I welded them by accident with Turbo Smooth on. I'm going to weld them together with Turbo Smooth off. I'm going to attach. I'm going to weld the vertexes down the middle. I'm going to find the middle vertexes here. Just the middle vertexes, nothing else. I'm checking, making sure I only got the middle part. I do. I see that I've had 82 vertexes together, and I should have 41 by the time I'm done welding. I turned it into an edit mesh by accident. I can convert it to an add poly. There you go. So I have the right amount of vertexes all welded down the middle. It looks pretty smooth. So my next step here is adding Turbo Smooth and seeing what it looks like with Turbo Smooth on. And you can see how nice and smooth it looks there. There is a couple things I'd like to obviously change. Like these vertexes right here are really straight. You see how like straight that is? That's because I was adjusting vertexes a little too much. But really, it doesn't take much effort just to do exactly what I'm doing right here. You see, do small adjustments, making sure this looks like that. And you should do this before you weld, of course, but for me, I made this mistake while I was doing this. So I'm just doing some slight adjustments here. I'll put this up, put that up a bit. One down, adjust it downwards. And you can see with my Turbo Smooth on, the shape definitely looks a lot better. Looks nice and smooth around here. You can definitely see that rib cage is clear, and it looks really, really nice. So just take your time, do your edits. Make sure to make 2 copies of your model, one detached, that's like what you're working with, and one finalized, and you'll have a full body done and ready to go, so that when we start the head modeling and adding some extra detail to things like the pelvis and stuff like that, you're going to be ready. But for sure, get this entire model done the way it is like this. Head, hands, breasts, stomach, pelvis, legs, feet. If you want to add in a little extra, or you want to do a different model other than this body, you want to do a different body, go for it. Highly suggested as well. But no assignment this week. Just get this done, these tutorial videos, go through them, make sure you got it. And I'll post the head videos this Saturday, head and hair, so you guys get an early start on that. And then next week is head, hair, and then the assignment will be to do your own character from bottom to top. As fast as possible, either using the base character, or if you're thinking about a character already in your head, this is just a modeling assignment, no unwrapping, but try and think of a character that you'd like to model that you can feasibly model in a week. So if you have less hours next week, be sure to actually, work accordingly, or just add armor to this character that we're modeling currently, and that might be a good assignment for you to do. Rather than create a whole new character, just work on this body and add armor to her, and that'll be a little easier. But like I said, for this week, make sure you get this entire body done. I'll throw the head and hair tutorial up on Saturday for you, but by Friday, Saturday, please try and get this whole body done. If you have any problems at all, just message me about it, because it's really important that you understand the basics of organics and the way skin flows, and learning that polygon flow, and being able to weld and cut your model to add detail in the areas you want. That's a really important thing. Okay, so see you guys next time. Get the work done, and look forward to the next video.